24 Days of Wonder. 24 stories from my 19 years with Santaland on 34th Street. Story 20. A visit from St. Nicholas. In 1998, there was a fierce determination up and down the line, and particularly with my boss, to ensure that this Christmas season was as magical as possible, and to firmly reestablish the store's tradition with the movie Miracle on 34th Street. One of the major things the store did that year was to present 6 scenes from the movie in the holiday window display on Broadway. This was a major undertaking, and a large event to unveil the windows was planned with Maureen O'Hara, one of the stars of the original film. I was the hiring manager for Santaland that year and had been given an office on the 8th floor Human Resources Complex. I began right after Labor Day, and by the first week of November, I'd filled about 2/3 of the Santaland schedules, but was still interviewing about 20 people a day. One afternoon, I got a call about a gentleman out front interested in a job for the season. The receptionist said he was causing quite a stir in the waiting area, and when I went out, I understood why. My jaw dropped when I saw him. Edmund Gwenn had played Kris Kringle in the movie Miracle on 34th Street. This man was a little shorter, a little rounder, a slightly shorter beard, but otherwise bore a strong resemblance to Mr. Gwenn. There was also something about his demeanor reminiscent of Kris Kringle. I was fully expecting him to tell me his name was Chris, but he introduced himself as Mark. Well, we went to my office for an interview, and he told me he'd been playing Santa Claus for many years. He made very good money at it, but felt it would be a dream come true to be a part of Santaland on 34th Street. When I described the job to him, he seemed very interested. When I told him what the pay rate was, he was very disappointed. He made a lot more doing private gigs. He asked if it was possible to have a part-time schedule so that he could still take those other jobs. The pay he got from those other jobs, he told me, he donated to various children's charities. However, there was a problem. Because while Mark's beard was perfect for Kris Kringle, we had a very strict rule at that time in Santaland of no real beards. We wanted Santa to look exactly the same in every picture, and so therefore we insisted that every Santa wear our fake beards that we provided. I called my boss and asked him to come down to my office, and his reaction to Mark was as strong as mine. But he was not willing to forego the no real beards rule. I explained our policy to Mark. He was disappointed, said that he couldn't possibly lose his beard because it meant that he would not be able to do the other charity events he loved so much. However, my boss had another idea, which I shared with Mark. I explained about the upcoming window unveiling with Maureen O'Hara, and I asked him if he would be interested in a one-day job appearing with Miss O'Hara at the unveiling. He was thrilled. I took down his information for my files. I smiled when he gave me his address in Great Neck, New York. Well, in the movie, Kris Kringle lived in a nursing home in Great Neck. I mentioned that fact to Mark, who replied he lived in a house with his family. The day of the event, he helped unveil the windows and took many photos with Miss O'Hara and with Gene McFadden, the head of the events department. As it was also the first day of Santaland training, I asked Mark to come up and say something to the crew. I wrote out a little speech for him, and I was hoping to surprise the staff with his appearance. And surprise them, he did. He also surprised me by addressing them with something totally different than what I had written, but 100 times better. He thanked them for keeping the spirit of Christmas and Santa alive and strong for the thousands of people who would visit Santaland that year. He told them that what they were doing was important, because the feeling of the season was important, and that the magic of childhood could be too easily lost. However, he said, that magic could be salvaged and rekindled, and even the most cynical of adults, with just a little effort, if one truly believed in the magic of Santa. The crew was in a state of awe when he left the training room. And so was I. And I thought that was the end of the story. But 7 months later, when my boss left the company, I started my full-time job with the events department in his old position. On my second day, I got a call from the budget office. They had a check that had been returned from the holiday season. They asked if I could try to track down a correct address for the person. The check was Mark's. The envelope had been stamped, addressee unknown. I double-checked the address in my files, and it was the same as on the envelope. I figured I mustn't have taken down his address correctly when he gave it to me, so I called the number I had for him. A woman answered. I asked for Mark. She said I must have a wrong number. I double-checked the number I had dialed. She said I had dialed correctly, but there was no Mark there, and she told me that had been her number for years. Well, a couple of years later, I met a woman who ran the Santa operation for another retailer in the city. And she told me a story that she felt was befitting for the man who ran the Miracle on 34th Street. In 1993, her store was committed to bringing Santa to 3 or 4 charity events. But their staff had been hit hard with illness, and they weren't sure how they were going to fulfill those commitments. One day, a man showed up at her office. She said he reminded her of Edmund Gwen, only a little shorter, a little rounder, with a slightly shorter beard. She hired him on the spot for the charity work. When she sent him his check, it had come back addressee unknown. His name was Mark. His address was in Great Neck.